Assalamualaikum, dear audience, with another episode of program LitArt from Planet FM 87.6 Radio Pakistan. I'm your host, Munir. Today in our studios we have a very special personality, as usual, very a personality with a comprehensive literary background, son of very beautiful, very trend-setting ghazal poet of 70s of modern Urdu ghazal, Ghulam Muhammad Kasir. We have Imad Kasir with us. Imad bhai, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And welcome once again. We recorded two very great programs in Urdu, and today for our audience that learns, that loves English, that listens English, we have again invited Imad Kasir Sahab for having a word with us about primarily about Ghulam Muhammad Kasir Sahab's poetry, his life, because he was a very vibrant man. He had many sides, many dimensions to his personality, in addition to his ghazal. And if you allow me, I'd start this program today as a tabarak with some couplets of Imad, some Kasir Sahab.
Sure, please.
तुम ना हक नाराज हुए हो वरना मैं खाने का पता हमने हर उस शख्स से पूछा जिसके नैन नशीले थे और कौन गुलाम मोहम्मद कासिर
बेचारे से करता बात ये चालाकों की बस्ती थी
और हजरत शर्मीले थे. क्या कहने, सुभान अल्लाह सुभान अल्लाह. इमाद कासिर साहब, in addition to being son of this great poet, he himself is an emerging artist, an artist in in so many mediums, not just an artist with words. He has written scripts for films. He beautifully sketches portraits. His sketches are displayed everywhere in Pakistan Academy of Letters. He sketched his father's portrait, and that is there on the display. And Imad Kasir Saab also has a special inclination for parapsychology. This is a science embedded in spirituality, and with that he is a motivational speaker. He is currently working with the State Bank of Pakistan, so he has a deep eye for the macroeconomics of the country, of the region, and of the world as well. So let's start for Barakat. Let's start talking from Kasir Saab's life. Kasir Saab was one of the most beautiful, delicate poet of this whole lot of 1970s that is renowned as a renaissance of Urdu ghazal. Ahya ghazal ki dehai kehte hain isko. A renaissance, a revival of ghazal, and ghazal was very much in tradition of romantic tradition. But these Kasir Saab and the lot, I name a few, like Reis Farooq, like Ram Riaz, like Sarbat Hussain, Jamal Ehsani, Parveen Shakir, even Faraz Saab, even Izharul Haq Saab, and so many others. They blew a new soul in the body, in the traditional spirit of ghazal. And Kasir Saab was distinctly identifiable with his matter, with his theme, and with his style. And he has so many, even his naat, even his salam is immortal, is everlasting, is vivacious. How do you see him as a father as well? Because you were very young when he passed away. And please share with us some of your personal memoirs of his life, his personality, because it was my personal interest. I've always been very interested in Kasir Saab's personality.
Before I respond to your question, let me thank you and your channel for inviting me to this wonderful program. And yes, you rightly mentioned that Kasir Saab's name is really very important when we talk about the literature of 70s. And he made his mark. And growing up, in a home where I saw books and literature, and my grandfather Sayyid Ahmed Akhtar, maternal grandpa, and my uncles Khawar Ahmed and Amjad Sayyid Akhtar, they were also poets.
And your mother also is.
My mother, she also writes poems, and
so as I said, that he has a comprehensive literary background on his dashboard.
Exactly. So growing up, I always had this feeling of this was a special feeling that, I mean, I saw Ahmed Faraz Sahab and Amjad Sahab, Iftikhar Arif Sahab, and people like him, Ahmed Kasmi. They used to they used to visit our home, and it was wonderful growing up. And it was right from the start, I had this feeling that my father, he had impact on others, whether it was his poetry, and you rightly mentioned, I mean, not only his ghazal but also his his naat and his salam. So
जज़ीद नक्शा है जो रो जफा बनाता है,
हुसैन उसमें खते करबला बनाता है,
यजीद लिखता है तारीकियों को दिन भर,
खत दिन भर, हुसैन शाम से पहले दिया बनाता है,
यजीद आज भी बनते हैं लोग कोशिश से,
हुसैन खुद नहीं बनता खुदा बनाता है. And couplets from his naat, like दिन को दिन, रात को जो रात नहीं लिख सकता, ऐसा फनकार कभी नात नहीं लिख सकता. So and of course ghazal, his a couple of couplets you mentioned, and then there's a very famous पहले एक शख्स मेरी ज़ात बना और फिर पूरी कायनात बना. And then I can recall that in his first book Tasalsul, which was published in 1977, Ahmed Kasmi Sahab, he wrote that that the entire civilization of Urdu ghazal, I mean, Kasir Sahab has made his mark so strongly. I mean, he said the exact words are that जब कोई सचमुच का शायर अपना बात कहने का सलीका रिवायत में दाखिल करता है, शामिल करता है, तो पूरी रिवायत जगमगा उठती है. So I mean, and then Zafar Iqbal Sahab, his remarks about Kasir Sahab's first books are quoted a lot. He had said that तसलसल पढ़कर लगता है कि कासिर की गज़ल वहाँ से शुरू होती है जहाँ मेरी गज़ल ख़त्म होती है. Zafar Iqbal Sahab had said this. So no doubt, I mean, I feel really lucky that Kasir Sahab, and then likes of him, you mentioned poets from 70s. And up till now, I mean, it's been quite some time, but we see that the generations who came after him, we see a lot of poetry being written, and there are so many poets who are writing very beautiful poetry. But we see that the style and the diction Kasir Sahab had, I mean, people, we can tell that there are so many poets who follow their marks and who try to write in their style. So that really is something which is to be cherished about, and we genuinely feel it's a wonderful feeling.
You're right that I say it that the poetry, ghazal, especially ghazal poetry, hasn't furthered than 70s. It is still standing in 70s. The 70s, the mark that the 70s lot created isn't yet been changed. It has yet been moved ahead, because you have rightly said that even the fresh people who are the young people, the youth who's writing, composing poetry, ghazal poetry especially now, they are following the trend set by the 70s, and they haven't moved much farther than that. Tell us something about Kasir Sahab personalities, because he was a very, very spiritually gifted man. And this is one side of his personality that isn't much discussed.
Yes, he was spiritually blessed, and I can recall that we would see him often. Like he was, you can see this in his poetry also. I mean, if you go through his poetry is not about only rhythm and rhymes. I mean, it has layers in it. I mean, every time you read his couplets, and it give you a different meaning every time. And his poems like Samita Patel or Khab Se Bedari Tak or Dusre Adam Ka Sehra. I mean, I'm mentioning or his couplets like गिले माह घूमते चाक पर कफ़े कूज़ा घर से फिसल गई कि बिसाते गर्दिशे सालो सिन यही फ़र्क अपने पराए का. So you can see a lot of spiritual stuff going on in his experiences also in his poetry. And as son, I can tell you that while growing up, I had this experience of seeing him quite having some spiritual experiences. I mean, people would come to him and ask so many different spiritual things from him, and by profession, as you know, that he was a professor. Urdu was his subject. But I can recall that a lot of his students would, seek his guidance in spiritual matters, and he would always guide them. And his poetry also tells. To me, I can tell you a lot of his couplets and poems, which tells you, some sort of spiritual experience.
You know, this poetic experience, this experience of creativity in general and in poetry as well, it is a spiritual experience.
It is, of course.
Because you are always inspired by deities, by muses, by gods, by gods of kalam. A poet is not much away from becoming a Sufi, and Kasir Sahab was a Sufi among poets. And so this now you told me about some of his visions, about his premonitions, about his forecasts, and this is very commonplace to the poets. A poet who is true to his poetic experience isn't much far from this spiritual experience, because it's somewhat shared between poets, but Kasir Sahab was excellent in that as well.
Yes, I think not only poets, I guess all the artists, they have some sort of spiritual experience. And creativity, to me, that comes through spiritual doors also. So, Kasir Sahab had this, as I mentioned earlier, that his poetry tells us a lot about his spiritual experiences and his inclination towards parapsychology, and that I had also, I have this interest in parapsychology. That is all due to his creative stuff that he had. So without spirituality, I don't think that creativity, these things go side by side, in my personal opinion.
And there's a concept of barakat in the word, what you write. This barakat can never be achieved by simply complying the meters and following the dictionary. You have to rely on the invisible forces.
Yes.
And you have to seek what we say invocation from the higher forces for blowing life into your couplets.
Yes, that is true. Poetry and other forms of art, as you mentioned in my introduction, that I have love for painting and sketches. So, to me, art is basically seeking the unseen, or searching for the unseen, knowing the unknown. And this love for going into the unknown territories and exploring the areas which are not known to many. So poets have this thing in at the back of their mind, their subconscious mind. They always keep on searching the unknown.
I can relate it very much with your sketching experience. You shared it with me, and I want you to have a word about it. This sketching, it appears just like drawing some lines on paper and making that figure, that face, but it is beyond that. The way you told me, I came to know about the hidden, catching that expression, catching that face, sketching that face with such a stroke that it squeezes whole of the personality of the person, of that guy being sketched, isn't a small task. Tell me about it. How do you sketch? You are a sketch artist, and your sketches are par excellent, wonderful.
I think you rightly said. As I was mentioning about my father's poetry, that he would seek or he would search for the unknown. Exactly like that. Whenever I make any sketch or any portrait or any person's picture, so I try to get the experience, and I just try to catch the expression beyond the visible. So that is, to me, the main art. And if you see the sketches I have drawn, so you will have this feeling by looking at those pictures, that I always try to capture the expression which is not visible that easily. So to me also it's a spiritual experience, and I also I always try to go beyond the known. I always try to try to capture which is not visible.
What is your method, SOP or modus operandi of sketching? Because is it like that you sit and you start making a face, or you contemplate on it?
Well, I mean, it's some this urge comes from inside, and for instance, if I have to make someone's sketch, so I'll either wait for any proper, any good picture of him, or I'll ask him that if you could share a few pictures, and then among those pictures, then I try to pick the picture which to me is different and says something, as I mentioned earlier, that beyond the visible. So then I simply place that picture, or if it is in the phone, and then I start trying the picture. So that is usually I
share with us your experiences. What sketches of you do you like the best? What type? What persons? How many people have you sketched so far?
Well, there are many sketches. My book, that is being published, a book of sketches, and there are like almost 50 sketches in that book. But I have drawn, a lot more than those, and I personally like my father's sketch. I mean, of course, that is one of my favorite sketches. Then I recently sketched Parveen Shakir. That is also, very Ali Akbar Natiq's sketch is also good. And then Allama Iqbal's sketch. So these are the sketches which I also like them because in those I feel that I have exactly captured the expression that I wanted to capture.
That's great. What else? This is sometimes it becomes very. Do you show your sketches to the persons for whom you may, obviously you can't show it to Iqbal? How do people receive it?
Well, people have their own lens of looking at things. I mean, because if someone he is an artist, if he tells me any technical stuff in a picture, I take it seriously. Otherwise, usually people say that it's looking like him, or in this picture you have drawn him a bit more serious, or his so people have their general comments, and of course, as you mentioned, that not I cannot give those sketches to everyone, but those who are like as I mentioned, that Ali Akbar Natiq Sahab, or those poets who are alive, or those celebrities. I mean, it has never happened that I have presented someone's his or her sketch and they haven't liked it. So
great.
I mean, it's a wonderful
One
feeling.
question about this sketch art. As we have so many in color and line, we have so many schools like Impressionism, like Expressionism, like Surrealism, and so many others. Abstractionism. There are so many schools in 20th century painting. Do we have the same schools or something like that in sketching as well?
Yes, in sketching also. I mean, you go through. I mean, these days people are drawing. There are artists who draw very realistic sort of, and there are also those like, for instance, Sayyid Akhtar Sahab. I mean, and so they use very very strong tones, and when it comes to in colors, when they make, I usually draw in pencil sketches or in pastels when I use colors. So there are different schools. I personally like that. I don't go for more realistic stuff. I personally like abstract, even in sketches also. So as I mentioned that I try to capture the expression. I work on the expressions more, instead of making it like a camera picture,
photographs,
or a photograph. So
isn't it very difficult, because a sketch, every person is idiosyncratic, is different from other, and every person is hiding behind one single expression, And that one single expression is key to all of his personality. Catching that expression, isn't it a challenge?
It is a challenge, but again, it is the art, and it is where you show your art. It is the area where you play, in fact. So I mean, that is of course difficult. For initially, I would always felt it difficult, but now I enjoy. I straight away look for that expression,
Yeah, yeah.
and as soon as I get that expression, then to me that
Sometimes this expression is very hard because in Parveen Shakir, you talked about Parveen Shakir making Parveen Shakir's sketch. Her whole personality is somewhere in her eyes or in her lips, because her eyes have a strange expression of an amalgamation of weeping and smiling and laughing. Everything is there. So isn't it very difficult to catch such an abstract, such an underlying scene?
yes, it
How
is.
do you manage it? How do you make it? Do you try to go into that feeling for catching it, or do you just try to copy it from the person, or you try to live? Because I feel you need to live that feeling for bringing that down on paper.
That is the best way to go for any portrait or a sketch. I mean, for instance, you mentioned Parveen Shakir. I mean, since I like her poetry also, and I have read her poetry so many times, so I exactly know her expression in the poetry also, and her pictures or her interviews. So I know that expression that she has in her most of her pictures. So that is true that the expression she carries, that is difficult to draw, difficult to capture.
Because her idiosyncratic, her particular expression is a mixture of so many expressions.
Yes.
Even her smile is not void of gloom.
That is true. That is true. So I mean, in her eyes, you can see that the depth also, and that, and her kulliyat mahe tamam, that photograph that is on that book also. So you rightly mentioned there are so many. That is a combination of so many expressions. And however, I mean, I was able to pick that expression, and instantly, the moment I just captured that expression, the portrait
I
was
can
over.
understand, because at the moment when you get that, your heart says bingo. Yes, I'm in there.
Yes.
And then you are left aside, and then your pen, your medium, your paper start working already on it without any
Yes.
effort. Effortlessly
Yes.
start working.
It is correct.
It is again an experience of mysticism. The point from where we started, that it is a process of negating your desire and letting your subject rule you.
Absolutely.
The same way you get aside and you let poetry flow through you, like Kasir Saab did.
Yes.
You get aside, you get your ego, your noise, everything aside, and you let the poetry flow through you and come on paper. So so you have inherited this from Kasir Saab as well. You talked about parapsychology. This is a segment, a topic that isn't frequently discussed in Pakistan, in third world. We have a parallel stream of this, of Salasil, of the tasawwuf, of Sufism, from the Hinduism as well and from Muslim as well. This region has a great tradition of mystics, of saints, of hermits, of spiritual beings who propagated Islam in the area. They were also mystics, and they open the windows of hearts and minds of people with their eyes, with their words, with their zikr as well. Can this parapsychology, my question is, because Western world has transformed it into a school, into an institution, into a formal institution, into a science. Can it be? I have reservations on it, because I am related with this stream, the other stream of Salasil and mystic school. Can it be schooled? How and when did you realize that you have this parapsychological factor? Because it all comes with the initial childhood observations of the external world, or observations of the people who are inclined towards parapsychology. Their perception of the world is different from the people surrounded by them. The people surround them, they have another approach of the world. People like you who have an inclination of parapsychology, they read the world differently. So did it begin in your childhood?
Yes, I basically inherited from my father. He had a strong inclination towards subjects like parapsychology, and as I mentioned earlier, that in his poetry also you can see a lot, spiritual stuff and parapsychology. And when growing up, in that home, so I had from the, right from the start, I had also inclination, and then luckily I had the opportunity to go through a lot of books in my early age. I mean, any book my father had related to poetry or parapsychology.
Can you name a few on parapsychology, especially, and
There were-
poetry as well? Reading poetry is also a parapsychological experience. I understand it, because when you read a couplet, a verse, and the feeling given in that immediately transfers into you in the form of an energy, and you feel a new self in you as a result of reading that. Poetry is again a medium of transcommunication, transmitting parapsychological experience to the reader who is at that frequency. That is true. So your reading poetry is is good, but I want to know more about if you could answer that. Which poets did you feel more inclined toward parapsychology or the spiritual experience, and what books on parapsychology did you go through?
Well,
because I haven't gone through much books on parapsychology.
Well, my father had this. He had, strong, communication with Ray Samrovi Sahab.
Oh yes,
and
he
and
was a
Ray
master of
Samrovi
it.
Sahab's books, and we had so many letters, personal letters that Ray Samrovi Sahab wrote to my father. And in those letters, a few of those letters, a couple of letters are included in Rangyada Ghulam Imad Kasir number, but there are so many other letters which we haven't published, but those letters discuss a lot about parapsychological discussions between my father and Risa Murvi Saab, and then later on his books on the same title, Parapsychology in Urdu, and then I had the opportunity to go through all those books, and then in English also, books on the working of subconscious mind and things related to your mind sciences. So all those books, and there are so many other articles which my father had, and people used to send him those articles in photocopied or any handouts or other books. So there were a few books which I can recall, Risa Murvi Saab's books and his articles, and then a few English books also, and then more
Jude Dispenza and people like Jude Dispenza and others.
All these kind of and Carl Jung or
Jung, yes.
people like
William James is the great name of the field.
William James also, and there were a lot of books on dreams and books on parapsychology
Theory of
and books
interpretation of dreams by Freud himself.
Freud himself, yes. So these all books, these were there, and I would always had this interest in those books, and then I had opportunity to discuss these areas and these subjects with my father. Although when he passed away I was too young, but after his demise I was 17 when he passed away. And then after his demise, a lot of his students, I'm still in contact with them, and they were the ones who used to come up to my father for discussing subjects like all these parapsychology and stuff like this. So I had this opportunity to discuss these things with him.
Raisa even practiced calling spirits and talking to them.
Yes.
He practiced so many things. But I feel Amrohi Saab turned it into a cultic practice somewhat.
He had a strong knowledge of all these areas, and because he exactly, and unfortunately in in Urdu in that time, in today's time it's quite a bit easier for you to search for such things on the internet, but growing up, like say in 90s, in 90s, so books were not easily available,
yes.
and internet was not that common at that time, but yet the stuff we we had at that time, we had gone through all that stuff, And you rightly mentioned that reading poetry also, and then I have learned it more through discussions and through personal practices. I mean, as I mentioned, that I feel that I have inherited it, and then I personally had some different kinds of experiences.
Like yoga, sadhasana, padasana, or candle, people burn a candle and then they watch it, and then till everything disappears and the flame disappears. These practices like this, telepathic or hypnotic, mesmeric.
These are all very basic
exercises,
and
yes.
these basic exercises, they tell you how to increase your concentration and how to focus on something. And telepathic experience, I mean, these are very, very
Telepathic
basics.
is very common. That is very commonplace experience.
Common and basic. And this candle and all that stuff, that is very basic stuff. I mean, parapsychology is something looking beyond the known, beyond the visible. So
for it, the visible things are only indicators of the things behind them.
yes, that is true.
One more question about it. There is always a need for a mentor, because this path of parapsychology is very dangerous in a way, because both the forces, the dark and the light forces, are always present, always ready to pounce upon you. The darker forces are always there, and with many yogis I have witnessed it, in yogis in particular, because yogis do the same thing, sitting in kavalasana and letting them breathe in and out, and negating everything around them, just focusing on that simple breath that is in and out. There are so many darker forces. They take to evil steps as well, because darker forces are always there. The forces of evil are all. How do we know? Because sometimes it becomes very difficult, because your nature of your experiences on both sides is the same. How to prevent ourselves from these darker forces? Is it possible without having a mentor, Murshid?
It is difficult without a mentor. I'm lucky to have people whom I go to and I seek their guidance. But it is true that without having a mentor, without having a guide, it is difficult.
At every step you have a prospect of being lost.
Yes, that is true. But I personally think that with experience, your heart tells you that is this the right way to proceed or not. I mean, that is very. I mean, in my personal case, I exactly know that. I mean, where I know that this is the right way, and where I sort of get deviated. So I exactly know that. I mean, this is the wrong side of it. So I need to be more careful. Or as you mentioned, that evil forces, they attack you. I mean, that is also a very common stuff.
And that is present at every step, each and every step.
Yes, that is true. But as I mentioned, that your heart guides you well. And once when the teacher, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
And when the student is really ready, the teacher disappears.
Disappears. So, I have personally experienced that. I somehow the guidance.
The teacher comes. Yes. If the student is upright, if the student is attentive, the teacher comes from here and there, nowhere, in an unexpected way.
Yes, to me, always.
That again is a whole code of the system of metaphysics, and this is true in spirituality as well. When we study the account of the meeting of Maulana Rum and Shams Tabriz, so we get to know that it wasn't the student, the Maulvi, who needed a teacher. Teacher also needed the student. True. Shams was more, eager to see someone who could take from him. It isn't always about the worldly. It isn't a worldly affair that the giver is always, there and the taker is on the lower hand. It is a field where a worthy taker is weighed more than the giver.
Yes, I mean it happens. It happens. I mean it is always both way. So you are not always on the receiving end. You at times you are on the giving side also. So I mean it happens both way.
So one thing you twice or thrice you mentioned that it's your heart that tells you. In our salasil, we are given zikr at every stage, and that zikr qualified. That also comes from somewhere. Do you have some incantations or utterances in your field that you say and things become clear? or there are some visions or some practices? Because testimony of heart is fine, wonderful, but Dil Zalim sometimes it misguides you as well.
Yes, that is also true. I mean, it misguides you, but I will stick to it in a way that, I mean, to me, it has always guided. I mean, it tells you whenever you are even if you are being misguided by your heart. I mean, you exactly know that you are being misguided and you are on the wrong track. So you exactly know, and once you know it, I mean, then it's.
I tell you, one litmus test for it is desire. You need to have yourself pure of desires. If you are pure of desires, you cannot be misguided. It is desire that envisages even the darker forces into a beautiful,
That is true,
case.
but desire can also be misleading stuff. I mean, desire to learn, desire to.
No, desire is desire. The desires that strengthen your ego.
Fine.
That मैं वाली desires are misleading. The desires that when you desire for knowledge, you are subsiding your ego.
True.
You are surrendering your ego to something higher. When you are surrendering to divinity or some greater force, some greater system. So it means you are sacrificing, you are withdrawing, you are surrendering your desire, yourself. So desire to me roughly means the same as ego. And this ego again has two faces.
Yes.
The negative side of ego.
I mean, as they say, ego is the enemy. I mean, that is absolutely right. And yes, you have to.
And another thing I feel, Imad, is sometimes it is not a work that is, we have to practice on certain days or certain times or certain, periods. It is all the times there.
It is ongoing. It is all the time.
Always in the background.
Yes, it is all. I mean, even if you are sleeping, I mean, your subconscious never sleeps. I mean, it is, all the time. That is absolutely right. I mean, it's a way of life, basically.
And this isn't something like practicing in a cult. This is at your workplace. This is on your road. This is with your family. You have to contain that everywhere you go. This has to define your personality thoroughly.
Absolutely, it is like that. I mean, it is not 9 to 5 stuff. I mean, it is a 24-hour game. So you'll have to be in that particular mindset, in that particular approach, and then the information comes in and you start downloading.
It's like a mobile theme that applies to every of your application. When we change theme of mobile, it applies to everything from top to bottom.
Exactly, it is exactly like that. And once you are into that state of mind, I mean, it is all about your vibrations and your frequency. So you have to be in that particular vibe to attract and to catch that similar kind of stuff.
You remind me of Tesla's
Nikola Tesla
said the same.
Yes. I mean, Nikola Tesla. I mean, he had said it. I mean, he had nailed it. I mean,
more than 100 years ago.
Yes, and it's if you want to know the secret of the worlds, you have to. Think in terms of energy, frequencies, and vibrations. So I mean, that is the key to it.
Aura never tells a lie. We tell lies. We can fake our personalities, but aura of a person.
Yes, aura or your vibrations, they never lie. And I mean, in parapsychology and in the start we discussed that seeing the unseen or seeking or knowing the unknown. So I mean, aura is something that tells you a lot about the person. I mean, even he or she hasn't said a word from his or her mouth, but you exactly the moment a person enters and you exactly know.
You're allowed. So, doesn't sometimes makes living difficult because at initial stages I had this problem of maladjustment with these people. Doesn't it make living difficult when you start reading too much and then reading starts coming to you? Sometimes I still become uneasy in the presence of such a person.
Yes.
How to tackle it?
Well, you have to bear with it. I mean, it is difficult. I mean, most of the times people, what they are saying with their, what they are saying, they do not mean that. And their auras tell you something different, and they are telling you an entirely different stuff. So initially it used to bother me a lot, but now with time I have now realized that most of the people they are usually, I mean, as we say, hypocrite maybe, that because they usually
This is the greatest theme of 20th century literature, the difference between appearance and reality.
True.
And that is somehow, at most of the times, that is strikingly, horribly 180-degree against each other.
yes, it
Appearance
is.
is directly opposite to what is there in reality. And I suggest that for forgetting ourselves, we need to be alone and we need to spend more time with nature. For
Yes.
forgetting ourselves of these negative influences.
And that is why you observe people who are into such stuff. They don't have more friends. They tend and they like to spend time either alone or with maybe a couple of persons whom they have this frequency where their frequency matches. And that is true. I mean, you usually you don't. Then you don't like to sit with people whom I mean, for instance, if I know about a person that his aura tells me a different story and he or she is an entirely different stuff, so I mean I will try to next time avoid
that person.
yes.
But there comes a stage when you start emanating energies more. There comes a stage when you even emanate energies to those who aren't, in frequent with you. That is a master stage, I feel.
Yes, that is true. I mean, that is all the time. It is there. I mean, whatever your state of mind is, you keep on, like you enlighten the energy that flows from you. So that is always there. But at times you just don't want to, waste your energy on those who that they don't respect that energy and they don't respect that vibration, or if they are not aware of that stuff. So you will not try to, or you will not like to waste your energies on people who don't deserve that sort of energy.
And they
from you.
simply drain you as well.
They drain you. I mean, they energy vampires, that's the term used for them. So they drain you, and most of the time, if you're positive energy and they subconsciously know that you are a positive person, so they will come up to you, they'll
Deliberately create harm to you.
yes, I mean, yes, at another level, they might not be aware of that fact consciously, but in their subconscious mind they exactly know that whenever I visit this person I feel good, and when they leave the room you feel drained.
And that actually, I think that too actually is a part of the process. The negative energies that I talked in the beginning, the darker forces, they come through their shapes and figuration.
Yes, they keep on coming to you, and the remedy or the solution is that you will have to then you'll have to keep your energy high. You'll have to keep your reservoir full, so that you have all the energy to benefit for your own self and to others also.
And in addition to this, you shouldn't stop giving it away, because the basic key is empty yourself. Because when you're empty, you said, the energy you're receiving, when you give it more, you receive more. The simple
That is
truth.
true. I mean, that is also true. I was mentioning that, I mean, if someone doesn't
Cater to it.
yes,
Acknowledges it.
yes, or doesn't understand or doesn't respect, I mean, that's a different ball game. Otherwise you are there to you have to make your impact also, and you have to give your positive energy to make the environment.
Sometimes it becomes so killing that one bad sector disturbs whole of your file association, file allocation in the mind. So you need to be very vigilant about it. This is great. It's a wonderful talk, and it's never ending, because at every step, when we feel that okay, we have achieved something, the very next moment we got to know that it is just the beginning of the next step. So isn't it like this? There is no proper school for it, and it can't be taught this much. So at every step, when we achieve something, some level, some rank, you get to know that the very next moment you get to know that this rank is nothing. This is just first step for another level, and there's miles to go.
Yes, that is, I mean, there is a theory called Dunning and Kruger effect. I mean, the theory tells you about this a lot. I mean, they say that the less you know, the more confident you are, and the more you know, then you start feeling that I don't know anything. And as Aristotle said that, I mean, the first thing to know is to know that you don't know. So the higher you know, the more you
Aware of your
excel.
ignorance.
Yes, the more you get aware of your ignorance, that there is a lot more to learn. So this is path to learning, and this is always like that. The more
This is the core of whole of your life.
yes,
You
yes.
have just living in the now is very important, because this moment is everything. This is whole of the past in it, and future springs out of it.
Absolutely. I mean, living in now and the power of now, the current moment, the present moment, the whole of this parapsychology and mind sciences, they have a lot of focus on this power of now. There is books on this very subject.
Power of Now,
Power
yes.
of Now is a famous book also. So they all tell you that how to live in your present moment, and that is the idea that if you focus on the current or the present moment, that makes your productivity at the maximum. So that is the key.
Thank you very much, Imad bhai. This was a great talk, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard so many things that haven't ever been much discussed on mainstream media and parallel media as well. Imad Kasir told us great things about creativity, about mystic experience, about parapsychology involved in it. And the last word where we are ending is the last word by Imad Saab. Live in the present moment. Life, Josie Saab, our great friend, recently passed away. He said, life is a continuous now. There is no past, there is no present. All of our past has squeezed up in this moment. Life isn't 70, 60, 100 years. It is just this one moment that we are living. Whole of our past squeezed into this one moment, and whole of our future will spring out of this one moment. The one who is not tuned to living into life in this very moment neither has past nor future. So it is the time. Now start living now. Thank you very much. Thank you, Imad bhai. Once
you very
again,
much.
I'm your host Munir Fayyaz from from LitArt, Planet FM 87.6, Radio Pakistan, Islamabad. Thank you very much.